Admiral Vox Krazz of the Terizan Empire stood on the command deck of the inevitable Conquest, his flagship dreadnought, staring at the holographic display of the unassuming blue planet. His tentacular facial appendages twitched with confusion, a rare expression for the veteran of 300 successful planetary subjugations. "Explain to me again," he said slowly, each word dripping with dangerous patience, "why our most sophisticated scanners can't locate this planet's defensive grid." The ship's chief intelligence officer, a thin, grey-skinned being named Drell, swallowed nervously. "Sir, we've run the scans 17 times. There are no planetary shields, no orbital defense platforms, no automated response systems, not even rudimentary early warning satellites with weapons capabilities." Krazz's eye ridges furrowed deeply. "That's impossible. Every species with spaceflight develops defense systems before achieving interstellar communication. It's the natural order of technological progression." Nevertheless, Admiral Drell continued, gesturing to the data streams flowing across the display, "the humans appear to have skipped that stage entirely. They have thousands of satellites, but they're all passive. Communications, weather monitoring, scientific instruments. Nothing weaponized." A trick Krazz concluded with a dismissive wave of his primary hand. No civilization achieves this level of development without becoming appropriately paranoid. Their defenses must be well camouflaged. Lieutenant Commander Pix, a reptilian tactical officer with metallic scales that clinked softly when he moved, cleared his throat. "Sir, we've observed their military installations as well. They're fragmented, divided among nation-states, no unified command structure, and their weapons systems are designed almost exclusively for fighting each other." Krazz stared at him in disbelief. "You're telling me they're still engaging in internal conflicts at this stage of development?" "Constantly," Sir Pix confirmed. The Admiral turned back to the viewport, his expression troubled. The Terizan Empire had conquered 47 planetary systems, and each conquest followed a predictable pattern approach: neutralize defenses, demonstrate overwhelming superiority, accept surrender, implement imperial governance. The lack of the second step in this sequence was not merely puzzling, it was deeply unsettling. "Prepare the diplomatic vessel," Krazz finally ordered. "If they won't reveal their defenses to our probes, perhaps they'll reveal them when faced with a direct approach." 3 hours later, a sleek Terizan shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, completely unmolested by any defense systems. Even more disturbing to Krazz, the humans had actually provided landing coordinates at a facility called the United Nations, without asking for identification, ship specifications, or even basic security protocols. As Krazz and his diplomatic entourage exited their vessel, they were greeted by a small gathering of humans in formal attire. One stepped forward, a tall man with a disarmingly friendly smile and a diplomatic badge identifying him as Jack Murphy, Special Envoy for Extraterrestrial Affairs. "Admiral Krazz," Murphy said cheerfully, extending his hand in what Krazz's cultural briefing identified as a greeting gesture. "Welcome to Earth. Hope the trip wasn't too boring. Space travel can be a real drag without good in-flight entertainment, am I right?" Krazz stared at the human's hand, then at his casual demeanor. The Admiral had seen many reactions to first contact with the Terizan Empire: terror, awe, religious ecstasy, militant defiance. He had never encountered whatever this was. "You do realize," Krazz said slowly, ignoring the outstretched hand, "that you are now in the presence of the galaxy's most formidable military force." Murphy withdrew his hand without offense and shrugged. "Yeah, we figured you guys must be pretty tough, sailing around in ships that size. Impressive engineering. Our space program is still working on reliable Mars shuttles, so you're definitely ahead in the cosmic transport department." Krazz's translator must be malfunctioning. The human spoke as if greeting a mildly interesting tourist, not the vanguard of an empire that could reduce his civilization to smoldering ruins. "I represent the Terizan Empire," Krazz stated more forcefully, "masters of 47 worlds across 12-star systems. Our military might is unparalleled in this sector of the galaxy." Cool, Murphy nodded, glancing at his watch. "Hey, we've set up a welcome reception inside. Nothing fancy, some refreshments. A few diplomats eager to meet you. We've even got scientists who've been dying to ask about your FTL technology. They've got this betting pool about whether you use wormhole manipulation or some kind of space folding technique." The Admiral's patience was evaporating rapidly. "Mr. Murphy, I don't think you comprehend the situation. We detected your world's transmissions. We analyzed your capabilities. We approached your planet openly, and you made no defensive preparations whatsoever." Murphy's expression remained frustratingly untroubled. "Well, what would be the point? If you guys wanted to cause trouble, I'm pretty sure those big ships of yours could handle whatever we threw at you. Seemed kinda pointless to scramble fighter jets against something that crossed interstellar space, you know? Your transmission said diplomatic contact, so here we are, being diplomatic." Krazz's security chief, a burly female named Grax, leaned toward him and whispered, "Sir, I've performed a passive scan. The human is unarmed, as are all humans present. They have minimal security in the building, primitive projectile weapons only." "Is something wrong?" Admiral Murphy asked, that infuriating smile still in place. "You look a little tentacle twisted there. Should we postpone the meet and greet? We're flexible." Krazz composed himself with effort. In 3 centuries of Imperial service, he had never encountered such baffling nonchalance in the face of overwhelming force. Either these humans were the most foolish species in the galaxy, or they possessed a confidence so profound it bordered on the supernatural. "No," Krazz said finally. "We will proceed with your reception. But know this, Mr. Murphy, the Terizan Empire is not accustomed to being treated with such casual regard." Murphy's smile widened, and for the briefest moment, Krazz thought he detected something else behind the human's eyes, something calculating, ancient, and surprisingly dangerous. "Well," Admiral Murphy said, gesturing toward the building, "Earth isn't accustomed to visitors. Guess we're both in for an interesting cultural exchange." "Absolutely unacceptable," Admiral Krazz growled, pacing the secure conference room aboard the inevitable conquest. The diplomatic reception had concluded 3 hours ago, and the Admiral's mood had deteriorated with each passing minute. 2 hours of meaningless small talk, finger foods, and humans asking about our space adventures, not a single negotiation about surrender terms. Not one question about Imperial governance protocols. Lieutenant Commander Pick scrolled through his data tablet. "The humans seemed most interested in cultural exchange, sir. Their scientists were particularly focused on our propulsion technology and communication systems." "Of course they were," Krazz snapped. "Intelligence gathering. But where's the fear? Where's the desperate scramble to form alliances or beef up their pathetic defenses? Their diplomat Murphy actually invited me to something called a baseball game tomorrow." The door to the conference room slid open, and a slender, blue-skinned female with large, multifaceted eyes entered. Officer Vex, the ship's top intelligence analyst, moved with the precise grace of someone accustomed to remaining unnoticed. She bowed slightly to Krazz. "Sir, I've completed my preliminary analysis of Earth's information networks." Krazz gestured impatiently. "And? What are they hiding?" Vexex hesitated, her expression troubled. "Sir, that's just it. They don't appear to be hiding anything. Their information networks are chaotic, contradictory, and largely frivolous. They devote enormous resources to entertainment, social status signaling, and arguing about trivial matters." "That can't be right," Drell interjected. "No species advances to this level while being this disorganized." "I agree," Sir Vexex said. "It defies all known sociological models of technological progression. But I've found something even more perplexing. I'd like to bring in our primitive species specialist to explain." At Krazz's nod, Vexex pressed a communicator on her wrist. The door opened again, admitting perhaps the strangest-looking member of the inevitable conquest's crew. Lumi was small, barely reaching Krazz's midsection, with pale pink skin, enormous eyes that took up almost half her face, and delicate, 6-fingered hands. Her species, the Vix, were renowned for their ability to understand the psychological frameworks of developmentally young civilizations. Admiral Lumi chirped, her voice high and melodic. "I've reviewed Officer Vex's findings and conducted my own analysis. Earth presents a fascinating anomaly." "I don't need fascinating," Krazz growled. "I need answers. Why aren't they building defenses? Why aren't they panicking at our arrival? And most importantly, what are they hiding?" Lumi blinked her enormous eyes rapidly, a sign of excitement in her species. "That's just it, Admiral. According to all my research, they're not hiding anything. This is genuinely how they function." She activated the room's holographic display, showing a dizzying array of Earth's political boundaries. Humans organize themselves into approximately 195 distinct political entities called nations. These nations frequently compete with, and occasionally engage in armed conflict with each other. There is no unified planetary government. Impossible, Grax, the security chief, objected. No species achieves spaceflight without unified governance. And yet Lumi continued, undeterred. They've not only achieved spaceflight but developed remarkable technology while maintaining this fragmented state. More interesting still, they're aware this is unusual. They just don't seem particularly motivated to change it. Krazz stared at the holographic display, his facial tentacles writhing with agitation. Are you suggesting they have no planetary defenses because they can't agree on building them? Partially, Lumi said, switching the display to show various military installations around Earth. Each nation maintains its own defense forces, primarily designed to protect against other humans. They have brief alliances called treaties and pacts, but nothing approaching a unified command structure. Vex stepped forward. Sir, there's something else. When I monitored their information networks after our arrival announcement, I expected to see panic, emergency government broadcasts, religious crises, the usual reactions to first contact. Instead, I found this. The display changed to show social media feeds filled with what appeared to be jokes, memes, and casual discussions about the alien arrival, interspersed with completely unrelated content about celebrities, food, and domesticated animals. They're treating our arrival like entertainment, Vexx said, bewilderment evident in her voice. Krazz stared silently at the display for a long moment. This makes no strategic sense. Either they have some secret defense capability we haven't detected, or they're genuinely this, unconcerned. There is a third possibility, Sir Lumi offered hesitantly. Which is, they know something we don't. The room fell silent as the implications of this statement sank in. Finally, Krazz turned to Vex and Lumi. I want you two on Earth. Immediately. Undercover operation. Find out what these humans know that makes them so confident. Find out if they have hidden defenses. Find out why they aren't building more now that we're here. Vex straightened. Parameters, sir. Tuned in. Observe. Get close to their decision makers if possible. I want answers in 48 Earth hours. And if we're discovered, Vex asked. Krazz waved dismissively. Use the standard cover story. Tourists interested in learning about Earth culture. Lumi blinked rapidly again. Sir, I must point out that neither of us physically resembles a human. My species is half their average height with distinctly non-human facial features. That's actually not a problem, Vex said, pulling up more data on her tablet. Humans regularly dress in elaborate costumes for entertainment purposes. They have entire gatherings called conventions where this behavior is normalized. We'll simply claim to be humans in cosplay if questioned. Perfect, Krazz nodded. Deploy immediately. And find out what this Jack Murphy knows. His confidence troubles me. As Vex and Lumi left to prepare for their mission, Krazz turned back to the viewport, staring down at the blue planet. 47 worlds had fallen to the Terizan Empire. 47 worlds had recognized the futility of resistance and surrendered. What made Earth different? The answer, he suspected, would either be laughably simple or terrifyingly complex. 6 hours later, Vexx and Lumi found themselves walking down a busy street in New York City, drawing far less attention than they'd anticipated. Vex wore a long coat and hat that concealed most of her blue skin, while Lumi had been passed off as a very committed cosplayer, in a realistic alien costume 3 times already. This is most irregular, Vexx muttered, dodging a group of humans who barely glanced at her. Their security is non-existent. We walked right through their port of entry with falsified documents. No, what's irregular is that Lumi pointed to a storefront window displaying television screens. Each showed different channels' news programs discussing the alien arrival alongside cooking shows, sports events, and fictional dramas, as if all were equally important. A middle-aged human male stopped beside them, following Lumi's gaze to the screens. Pretty wild, huh? Aliens show up and we're still arguing about which celebrity wore what to some awards show. Vex seized the opportunity. You don't seem concerned about the alien presence. The man shrugged. What am I going to do about it? Government says they're peaceful. If they're not, well, either they'll kill us all or they won't. Meanwhile, I got bills to pay. He gave Lumi an appreciative look. Great costume, by the way. Very realistic. Thank you, Lumi replied. I worked very hard on it. After the man walked away, Vex consulted her hidden scanner. According to intelligence reports, the human diplomat Murphy frequents an establishment called O'Malley's Pub 3 blocks from here. We should observe him in a less formal setting. As they walked, Lumi constantly scanned their surroundings, her large eyes missing nothing. Vex, have you noticed something odd about the humans we're passing? Besides their complete lack of concern about our presence? No. They're not unified, as we established. Yet they all share a strange resilience. Look at their faces. They're stressed, hurried, focused on individual concerns, but not afraid. Not of us, not of each other, not of anything I can detect. Vex considered this. Perhaps they're simply too primitive to recognize the danger. I don't think so, Lumi said slowly. I think it's something else entirely. O'Malley's pub turned out to be a dimly lit establishment filled with the smell of fermented beverages and cooked food. And there, sitting at the bar nursing an amber liquid, was Jack Murphy himself. He looked up as they entered, and to Vex's surprise, his face broke into a genuine smile of recognition. Well, he called out, raising his glass in their direction. If it isn't our new friends from the stars, trying to blend in with the locals. Come on over. First round's on me. Vex froze, their cover blown in seconds. Lumi, however, simply blinked her enormous eyes and walked directly to Murphy. How did you know? She asked. Murphy chuckled. Let's just say you two aren't the first visitors we've had. You're just the first ones who bothered to announce yourselves properly. He gestured to the bartender. 2 of whatever they want for my extraterrestrial friends. And with that casual statement, Jack Murphy appended every assumption Admiral Krazz had made about Earth and its defenses. You know, Jack Murphy said, sliding a glass of something alarmingly blue toward Lumi, for an advanced civilization capable of interstellar travel, you guys really suck at undercover work. Vex stiffened, her blue fingers tightening around her untouched drink. Our mission parameters did not anticipate immediate recognition. Of course they didn't, Murphy chuckled. Because Admiral what's his tentacles, Krazz Lumi supplied helpfully. Right. Admiral Krazz still thinks he's dealing with a bunch of primitive monkeys who just happened to figure out radio waves. Murphy took a sip of his drink. No offense, but you folks aren't the first to make that particular miscalculation. Vex leaned forward, instincts warring between maintaining cover and gathering intelligence. You mentioned other visitors. Elaborate. Buy a girl dinner first, Murphy winked. Look, let's not play games. You're here because your boss can't figure out why we're not cowering in terror or building massive space guns to point at your ships. I'm here because watching you two try to blend in is literally the most entertainment I've had all week. He gestured vaguely at Lumi. I mean, come on. You're 3 feet tall with eyes the size of dinner plates. 3'7", Lumi corrected primly. My apologies, Murphy said with exaggerated courtesy. The point is, I know why you're here. So how about this? Instead of you two fumbling around trying to extract information, I'll just show you around, give you the authentic human experience, and maybe, just maybe, you'll figure out what you're missing. Vex narrowed her eyes. Why would you help us? Murphy's smile turned enigmatic. Maybe I'm just a friendly guy. Maybe I have orders to keep you occupied. Or maybe I'm just curious to see the look on your faces when you finally get it. He drained his glass and stood up. So what do you say? Guided tour of Earth with yours truly, or continue this adorably obvious espionage attempt? Vex and Lumi exchanged glances. This was not how undercover operations were supposed to proceed, but then, nothing about Earth was following expected protocols. We accept your offer, Vex said finally. Excellent, Murphy clapped his hands together. We'll start tomorrow morning. Meet me at Central Park, 9 a.m. Wear comfortable shoes, he pointed at Lumi's delicate, 6-toed appendages, or whatever those are. This is a waste of time, Vex subvocalized to Lumi as they followed Murphy through a crowded farmer's market the next morning. We should be infiltrating their military installations, not shopping for produce. Patience, Lumi replied softly. Primitive societies often reveal more through casual activities than formal settings. Besides, observe how the other humans are reacting to us. Vexx did, and was once again bewildered. Despite Lumi's obviously alien appearance and Vex's own blue skin, which she'd stopped trying to completely hide after Murphy pointed out that several human performance groups painted themselves similar colors, the market-goers barely gave them a second glance. A few children pointed, some teenagers asked for selfies which appeared to be some form of photographic ritual, but otherwise they moved through the crowd with remarkable ease. "Hey, you've got to try these," Murphy said, returning from a vendor with 3 strange red fruits, strawberries, one of Earth's simple pleasures. Lumi scanned hers with a concealed device, confirmed it wasn't toxic to her biology, and took a tentative bite. Her enormous eyes widened even further. "This is quite pleasant." See, Murphy grinned. "Not everything has to be about galactic domination and species superiority. Sometimes it's just about finding the good stuff along the way." Vexx reluctantly tried her strawberry, finding it indeed surprisingly agreeable. "Your species seems oddly fixated on sensory pleasures." "Among other things," Murphy agreed, leading them through the market. "We're a contradictory bunch. We'll fight wars over abstract ideologies, then risk our lives to save a stranger's pet. We'll develop nuclear weapons, then use the same technology to treat cancer. We'll argue bitterly over trivial differences while cooperating on projects that span continents." Inefficient Vex commented. Gloriously so, Murphy nodded. "That's what you folks can't wrap your heads around. We thrive on inefficiency, contradiction, and chaos. It's not a bug in our system, it's a feature." They spent the morning touring various New York landmarks, from towering skyscrapers to small neighborhood gardens. Throughout it all, Murphy maintained a running commentary on human history, habits, and peculiarities. By midday, even Vexx had to admit she was learning far more than she would have through conventional espionage. After lunch at what Murphy insisted was an authentic New York pizzeria, he led them to a small park where a group of humans had gathered around a wild-eyed man standing on a plastic crate. "Government won't tell you the truth," the man was shouting, his unkempt hair and rumpled clothing giving him the appearance of someone who had recently lost an argument with an electrical outlet. "These so-called diplomatic aliens are just the latest cover-up. Earth has been infiltrated for decades." Murphy nudged Vexx and Lumi. "This is Eddie, local conspiracy theorist. Never misses a chance to enlighten the masses." Lumi blinked rapidly. "He appears to be discussing our presence, yet his information is incorrect." "That's Eddie for you," Murphy chuckled. "Been claiming alien invasion for 20 years. Now that you've actually shown up, he's convinced you're a distraction from the real aliens." "And you allow this public dissemination of misinformation?" Vexx asked, genuinely perplexed. Murphy shrugged. "First Amendment. Freedom of speech, even if that speech is nuttier than a squirrel's winter stash." They moved closer to the small crowd. Eddie had unfurled a large, hand-drawn chart connecting disparate events with colored strings and was jabbing at it enthusiastically. Lizard people established their underground bases in the 1950s. The Greys have been conducting experiments since Roswell. The Nordics infiltrated our government in the 1970s. And now these new Terizans show up, all diplomatic-like. Connect the dots, people. To Vex's surprise, the crowd seemed more amused than alarmed. Some were filming Eddie on their communication devices. Others were asking questions that seemed designed to encourage even more outlandish claims. "Should we be concerned about this human?" Lumi whispered to Murphy. "He appears to have knowledge of other extraterrestrial species." Murphy laughed. "Eddie has knowledge of about 17 different alien races, most of which he made up himself. The rest he got from science fiction shows and internet forums. But what if he is correct about previous visitors?" Vexx pressed. "Then he's accidentally right for all the wrong reasons," Murphy replied cryptically. He approached the ranting man with a friendly wave. "Hey Eddie, got some friends here who'd love to hear your theory about the hollow moon." Eddie's wild eyes locked onto Lumi and Vexx, and for a moment genuine shock registered on his face. Then, to their surprise, he broke into a wide grin. "Murphy, you magnificent bastard. You brought them right to me." He jumped down from his crate and approached, examining them with unnerving intensity. "Excellent disguises, but you can't fool Eddie. You're from the Resistance, aren't you?" Here to confirm my theories. Vex-X shot Murphy a questioning look, but he just smiled encouragingly. Yes, Vex-X said hesitantly. We are very interested in your theories. For the next 20 minutes they were subjected to the most bewildering barrage of information either of them had ever encountered. Eddie wove a tapestry of conspiracy that included no fewer than 6 alien races, 3 shadow governments, something called the Illuminati, and an elaborate explanation of how the human entertainment industry encoded warnings about real alien activities into their fictional stories. Hiding in plain sight, Eddie concluded triumphantly. Every alien invasion movie is actually preparing us for the real thing. Lumi, whose species possessed an exceptional memory, had tracked every twist and turn of Eddie's labyrinthine explanation. Fascinating, she said sincerely. And humans produce these movies in large quantities. Thousands, Eddie confirmed, each one a piece of the puzzle. As they finally extracted themselves from Eddie's gravitational pull of conspiracy, Vex turned to Murphy. That was educational. More than you realize, Murphy replied. Eddie's crazy as a soup sandwich, but he accidentally hit on something important. Come on, one more stop today. That stop turned out to be a massive structure Murphy called a multiplex cinema. Inside, humans lined up to view what appeared to be recorded entertainment on large screens. Movies, Murphy explained. Purchasing 3 tickets to something called Cosmic Invaders, 3 Earth's Last Stand, one of humanity's favorite pastimes. We spend billions every year on these things. Inside the darkened theater, Vex-X and Lumi watched in growing astonishment as the screen displayed a remarkably accurate, if dramatically embellished depiction of an alien invasion of Earth. The invading species bore no resemblance to any known galactic race, but their technology and tactics were surprisingly plausible. More surprising still was the film's depiction of humans fighting back against overwhelming odds, using guerrilla tactics, exploiting the aliens' technological weaknesses, and ultimately prevailing through what the script repeatedly called the indomitable human spirit. This is fiction, Lumi whispered to Murphy. Of course, he whispered back. We've made hundreds like it. But why, Vex asked, genuinely puzzled. Why create entertainment around the concept of your own species' potential destruction? Murphy smiled in the flickering light of the screen. That, Officer Vex-X, is the question you should be asking. Why indeed? As they exited the theater later, Vex's communications device vibrated with an incoming message from the inevitable conquest. Admiral Krazz was demanding an immediate update. We must return to our ship, Vex told Murphy stiffly. Sure thing, he replied easily. Same time tomorrow? I've got a whole itinerary planned. Thought we'd check out a comic convention you two would fit right in and maybe tour a history museum. You haven't lived until you've seen our exhibition on historical warfare techniques. Why are you doing this? Vex-X demanded suddenly. What do you gain from showing us these things? Murphy's perpetual smile faded for a moment, replaced by something older and wiser than his youthful appearance suggested. Let's just say I'm a fan of interspecies understanding. Much better than the alternative, don't you think? As Murphy walked away, whistling tunelessly, Lumi turned to Vex with an expression of profound concern. I think I'm beginning to understand, the small alien said quietly. Understand what? Why Earth doesn't need defenses, Lumi clutched her data tablet tightly. And why that should terrify us. Absolutely unacceptable, Admiral Krazz thundered, his facial tentacles practically vibrating with rage. 24 Earth hours, and your primary intelligence gathering consisted of consuming street food, watching entertainment media, and conversing with a mentally unstable human. Vex-X stood rigidly at attention in the inevitable conquest's briefing room. Sir, our investigation has been unconventional but potentially revealing. Revealing, Krazz slammed a 3-fingered hand onto the conference table. The only thing revealed is that my top intelligence officer has been thoroughly manipulated by a human diplomat. Lumi, who had been quietly analyzing data in the corner, looked up from her tablet. Admiral, if I may, at Krazz's curt nod, she continued. While our methods appear unorthodox, we've observed behavioral patterns that may explain Earth's lack of conventional defenses. The Admiral's eye ridges rose skeptically. Enlighten me. Lumi activated the room's holographic display, showing footage from their Earth excursion. Humans exhibit 3 characteristics that defy our standard threat assessment models. First, they show remarkable adaptability to unusual situations. The display showed various humans casually interacting with Lumi and VexX, despite their obviously alien appearances. Second, they display an unusual preoccupation with apocalyptic scenarios. The screen shifted to show movie posters, book covers, and game advertisements, all featuring various doomsday themes. They've created thousands of detailed simulations of their own civilization's downfall through alien invasion, planetary disasters, pandemics, and numerous other catastrophes. Entertainment Krazz dismissed with a wave. Primitive species often dramatize their fears. That's just it, Sir Lumi continued. They don't seem afraid. They seem prepared. Which brings me to the third characteristic. She pulled up surveillance footage from Earth's information networks, showing humans casually discussing the Terizan arrival. Their response to our presence lacks the panic or reverence we typically observe during first contact. Instead, there's a disturbing familiarity. Drell, who had been silently observing, leaned forward. Are you suggesting they've encountered other advanced species before us? The evidence is inconclusive, VexX interjected. The human Murphy made several comments implying previous extraterrestrial contact, but offered no specifics. The deranged human Eddie claimed knowledge of multiple alien species, but his information was clearly contaminated with delusion. Or deliberate misinformation, Lumi added quietly. Krazz stared at the holographic display, his strategic mind rapidly reassessing. New theory: Earth has no formal defenses because they're under the protection of another galactic power. That would explain their confidence. Unlikely, Sir VexX replied. We've detected no quantum signatures, no non-human technology, no evidence of external protection. Earth appears genuinely isolated, yet inexplicably unconcerned about that isolation. Krazz growled in frustration. Continue your investigation. If this Murphy human is deliberately guiding your observations, play along. See where he leads you. But I want concrete answers, not cultural anecdotes. Yes, Sir Vex and Lumi acknowledged in unison. As they prepared to return to Earth, Lumi pulled VexX aside. There's something I didn't mention to the Admiral. Something troubling. What is it? Lumi's enormous eyes were solemn. During our cinema experience, I observed the human reactions to the fictional alien defeat. They weren't surprised or relieved. They were expectant. As if the outcome was predetermined. Vex considered this. Fictional heroics to boost morale? No, Lumi shook her head. It's deeper than that. They genuinely believe they would win, against any opponent, under any circumstances. That's irrational. Yes, Lumi agreed. And that's what worries me. The next morning, they found Murphy waiting at the agreed location, this time holding 3 cups of a steaming brown liquid. Coffee, he explained, handing them each a cup. Humans run on this stuff. Careful. It's hot. Lumi scanned hers discreetly and took a cautious sip. Bitter, yet oddly stimulating. That's humanity in a nutshell, Murphy grinned. So, how was your debriefing with the Admiral? I imagine he's getting pretty frustrated by now. VexX nearly choked on her coffee. You anticipated our report. Of course. Standard intelligence procedure. You gathered weird data that doesn't fit your invasion protocols, reported back, and got ordered to dig deeper. Murphy sipped his coffee nonchalantly. No offense, but your empire isn't exactly trailblazing new ground in the galactic conquest department. The Terizan Empire does not share its military protocols with primitive species, Vex said stiffly. Doesn't have to, Murphy replied, guiding them into a large, imposing building with the words Metropolitan Museum of History emblazoned above its entrance. You guys all follow the same playbook. Show up, scan for defenses, neutralize said defenses, demonstrate overwhelming force, accept surrender, implement imperial governance. Boring, predictable, and completely ineffective against certain species, like humans, Lumi asked. Murphy winked. Today's topic: human history, specifically warfare. I figured your militaristic empire might appreciate this particular museum wing. The next 2 hours were a disquieting education in humanity's martial past. Murphy led them through exhibits detailing conflicts spanning thousands of years, from ancient battles with primitive weapons to modern warfare with increasingly sophisticated technology. 7 major wars in the 20th century alone, VexX murmured, examining a World War II display. How did they advance technologically while constantly destroying their infrastructure? That's the funny thing, Murphy replied, a hint of pride in his voice. War drives innovation. Nothing motivates human ingenuity like trying to kill each other more efficiently. Lumi studied a Vietnam War exhibit with particular interest. This conflict is presented oddly. the technologically superior force. Lost happens more often than you'd think. Murphy nodded. Superior technology doesn't always translate to victory, especially against an enemy fighting on their home turf with unconventional tactics. As they moved through the museum, a disturbing pattern emerged. Humanity's history was essentially an unbroken chain of conflicts, ranging from tribal skirmishes to global wars. More disturbing still was how casually Murphy discussed atrocities that should have collapsed their civilization multiple times over. Nuclear standoff, Vex X repeated incredulously, staring at the Cold War exhibit. You developed weapons capable of planetary destruction, pointed them at each other, and based your security on the assumption that no one would use them. Mutually assured destruction, Murphy confirmed cheerfully. MAD for short. Appropriate acronym, wouldn't you say? Your species survived this, Lumi asked. So far, Murphy shrugged. We came close to annihilation a few times. Cuban Missile Crisis. A few computer glitches. Some tense moments in the 80s. Good times. Vex's military training struggled to process this approach to security. You developed planetary destruction capabilities, yet never established unified defenses against external threats. Why bother, Murphy replied, leading them toward another wing of the museum. If we can't agree on who controls which patch of dirt on our own planet, how would we agree on defending the whole thing? Besides, we figured any species advanced enough for interstellar travel would either be peaceful or so powerful that our defenses would be pointless anyway. That's surprisingly rational, Vex X admitted. We have our moments, Murphy grinned. Besides, we had a better plan, which is, it'd be too much trouble to bother with, Murphy said, pushing open the doors to a new exhibition hall. This is my favorite part. The hall was dedicated to asymmetric warfare through history, showcasing how smaller, less technologically advanced forces had successfully resisted or defeated superior invaders. From ancient guerrilla campaigns to modern insurgencies. The exhibition detailed centuries of humans refusing to accept defeat despite overwhelming odds. The thing about humans, Murphy explained as they walked through displays of resistance movements, civilian uprisings and unconventional tactics, is that we don't know when we're beaten. Tell a human something's impossible, and they take it as a personal challenge. Tell them to surrender, and they'll fight twice as hard. Illogical, Vex commented. Completely, Murphy agreed. And yet, here we are, thousands of years later, still fighting, still surviving. He stopped before a quote etched into the wall, attributed to someone named Winston Churchill. We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields, and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills, we shall never surrender. This sentiment is common, Lumi asked, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. Universal, Murphy corrected. Different words, different cultures, same idea. Humans don't stay conquered. Ever as they exited the museum, they passed a group of schoolchildren on a field trip, laughing and pointing at exhibits of ancient weapons. Your younglings are exposed to this history of violence, Vex X asked, watching a small human enthusiastically mimic sword fighting. Of course, Murphy replied. How else would they learn? And they show no trauma from this knowledge. Murphy's perpetual smile took on a sadder quality. That's the thing about humans. We normalize the unthinkable. Nuclear weapons? Just another fact of life. Global pandemics? We make dark jokes while burning the dead. Climate disasters? We adapt and move on. Alien invasion? He fixed Vex with a suddenly serious stare. Just another Tuesday. Before Vex X could respond, her attention was drawn to a nearby public view screen displaying news. The anchor was calmly discussing potential economic impacts of establishing trade relations with the Terizan Empire, as if negotiating with an alien civilization was a routine business matter. Experts suggest minimal market disruption, as interstellar trade would likely begin with information exchange rather than material goods. In other news, the tropical storm forming in the Atlantic has been upgraded to a hurricane warning for coastal. See what I mean? Murphy gestured to the screen. Your arrival is already old news, squeezed between economic forecasts and weather reports. I don't understand, Vex admitted, a rare concession for a Terizan intelligence officer. Your species faces planetary threats regularly, has no unified defense, has a history of constant conflict, yet treats our arrival as routine. This contradicts all known sociological models. Murphy checked his watch. Time for lunch. There's a great Vietnamese place around the corner. After that, I want to show you something that might help clarify things. What would that be? Lumi asked. A university lecture on apocalypse preparation, Murphy replied casually. should be enlightening. As they walked, Vex received another message from the inevitable conquest. Admiral Krazz was demanding their immediate return with actionable intelligence. "We must cut this short," Vex informed Murphy. "Our presence is required elsewhere. Duty calls." Murphy nodded understandingly. "Tomorrow, then. The lecture's at 2 p.m. Meet me outside Columbia University. Trust me, you won't want to miss Professor Chen's talk on post-apocalyptic survival strategies in popular culture." As Murphy walked away, Vex turned to Lumi, whose expression was troubled. "I believe I understand now," the small alien said softly. "Understand why Earth has no defenses." Lumi clutched her data tablet tightly against her chest. "They don't need them. Their defense isn't technological. It's psychological," explained Vex demanded. "They've mentally prepared for every possible apocalypse," Lumi replied, her voice tinged with awe and horror. "Including us." "Psychological defense is not a recognized strategic doctrine," Admiral Krazz declared, pacing the command deck of the inevitable conquest. "It's a primitive rationalization for technological inadequacy." Vex and Lumi had spent the last hour briefing the Admiral on their findings, displaying evidence from their Earth excursions on the holographic projector. Their report had been met with increasing skepticism. "With respect," Admiral Lumi ventured, "human psychological patterns suggest I don't care what they suggest." Krazz snapped. 47 worlds have fallen to the Terizan Empire. 47 species recognize the futility of resistance when confronted with our technological superiority. This will be no different. Sir Vex interjected, "Our standard conquest protocols may be ineffective against this species. Their historical response to superior forces has been inconsistent with rational behavior." Krazz stopped pacing and fixed his intelligence officer with a glacial stare. "Are you suggesting humans would resist even after witnessing our capabilities? That they would choose destruction over imperial governance?" "The evidence indicates that possibility." "Yes," Vex confirmed. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. "Then perhaps a demonstration is in order. Something to clarify the reality of their situation." He turned to his tactical officer. "Pix, prepare a precision strike. Something remote but visible. An uninhabited island, perhaps. We'll show these humans what they're facing," Sir Lumi said with uncharacteristic urgency. "I strongly advise against such action. My analysis of human psychology suggests." "Your analysis is noted." Krazz cut her off. "The demonstration will proceed." As the tactical team began preparation, Drell approached with a data tablet. "Admiral, we've detected unusual activity in Earth's information networks. It appears our communications have been compromised." "Impossible," Krazz dismissed. "Our quantum encryption is impenetrable to their technology." Nevertheless, Drell continued, "Human information sources are discussing details of our tactical capabilities that were only mentioned in secure communications, including," he hesitated, "your plans for a demonstration strike." Krazz's facial tentacles writhed with barely controlled rage. "How long has this breach existed?" "Unknown, sir. But the information is spreading rapidly through their networks." "Show me," Krazz demanded. The main view screen shifted to display Earth's internet. To the Admiral's shock, detailed discussions of Terizan capabilities were unfolding across multiple platforms. More disturbing still, humans were actively sharing countermeasure strategies, from technical exploits of potential Terizan weaknesses to guerrilla tactics against ground forces. "These are civilians," Krazz said incredulously, watching as ordinary humans casually discussed resistance strategies. "Not military strategists. Not government officials. Random citizens." Sir Vex said quietly, "This supports our findings. Humans have been psychologically preparing for this scenario for generations." The view screen shifted again, now showing what appeared to be a virtual meeting of humans from various regions. They were collaboratively developing a detailed defense plan that, while technologically inferior to Terizan capabilities, showed a disturbing understanding of asymmetric warfare principles. "Where is this coming from?" Krazz demanded. "How do they know our tactical vulnerabilities?" "They don't," Sir Lumi explained. "They're guessing, based on fictional scenarios they've been entertaining for centuries. But their guesses are disturbingly accurate." The Admiral stared at the screen, watching as humans from around the planet spontaneously organized resistance strategies without any central coordination. "This is unprecedented." Sir Drell interrupted again. "We're receiving a communication request." From Jack Murphy. Krazz's eyes narrowed. "Put him through." The view screen shifted, and Murphy's perpetually amused face appeared. "Admiral, hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Like say," Plans for a demonstration of your impressive firepower. Our communications are secure, Krazz stated flatly. Sure they are, Murphy nodded agreeably. Just like the Arxian Empires were, and the Vostok collectives, and those weird hive mind beetles from Proxima Centauri. At Krazz's stunned expression, Murphy's grin widened. Oops. Was that classified? My bad. You've had previous contact with spacefaring civilizations, Krazz said, finally acknowledging what they'd suspected. Ding ding ding. Give the Admiral a prize, Murphy laughed. Yes, we've had visitors. Quite a few, actually. Most didn't bother announcing themselves like you did. More of a sneak in, look around, sneak out approach. Some were friendly. Others, not so much. Yet you have no planetary defenses, Krazz noted. No unified military response protocol, don't need in, Murphy shrugged. Look, I appreciate you giving Vex and Lumi the chance to explore our little planet. They've been model tourists. But I think it's time we had a more direct conversation, don't you? Maybe face-to-face, rather than through this easily hackable communication system. Krazz considered his options. Standard protocol dictated maintaining distance and superiority, but nothing about Earth had followed standard patterns. Very well. My ship. 1 hour now, Murphy waved dismissively. Too formal. There's a nice little cafe near Central Park. Good neutral ground. I'll send coordinates. Just you, me, and maybe your 2 cultural attaches here. He winked at Vex, X, and Lumi. 1 hour. Before Krazz could object to this blatant disregard for protocol, Murphy ended the transmission. Sir, this is highly irregular, Drell protested. Meeting a primitive species representative on their territory violates security protocols. Everything about this planet violates protocols, Krazz replied grimly. Prepare a security detail. Discreet weapons only. 1 hour later, Admiral Krazz found himself sitting at an outdoor cafe table, surrounded by humans who seemed entirely unconcerned by the presence of an alien warlord in their midst. A few took pictures with their communication devices, but otherwise went about their business as if his presence was unremarkable. Murphy arrived precisely on time, dropping casually into the chair across from Krazz. Coffee? They make a great espresso here. I did not come for beverages, Krazz stated coldly. No, you came for answers, Murphy nodded. Fair enough. Ask away. How many extraterrestrial civilizations have contacted Earth? Murphy considered this. Officially? Just you. Unofficially? I've personally dealt with 7. Intelligence suggests at least 12 others have observed us without formal contact, yet your governments keep this information from your people. Nope, Murphy laughed. We told everyone. Multiple times. Press conferences, official statements, documented evidence. Nobody believed it. Or rather, some believed it, some didn't. Most didn't care enough either way to change their daily routines. He gestured to the bustling city around them. Humans are remarkably good at normalizing the extraordinary, the conspiracy theorist Vex realized. He was partially correct. Eddie? Yeah, he's got about a 30% accuracy rate, buried under 70% complete nonsense. Makes it hard to sort fact from fiction, which is exactly how we like it. Krazz's eye ridges furrowed deeply. You deliberately obscure the truth about extraterrestrial contact. Why, first rule of surviving in a galaxy full of more advanced species, never let them know what you actually know. Murphy replied, his casual demeanor slipping to reveal something colder and more calculated. Second rule, make yourself more trouble than you're worth, explain, Krazz demanded. Murphy leaned forward. Let me tell you a story, Admiral. Back in Earth's 20th century, a small nation called Vietnam was invaded by the world's most powerful military force. On paper, it was no contest. One side had advanced technology, air superiority, and overwhelming firepower. The other had bicycles, tunnels, and punji sticks. Care to guess who won? I am familiar with the historical example, Krazz replied stiffly. Good. Then you understand the concept. Now scale that up to planetary level. Murphy's eyes took on an intense focus. Humans don't win by matching force with force. We win by making victory so costly that our enemies choose to leave. Is that a threat? Krazz asked quietly. No, it's a business proposition, Murphy smiled, the intensity vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. You see, the Terizan Empire has 3 options here. 1. You attempt conquest. We resist with everything from nuclear weapons to pointy sticks, and regardless of who wins the planet you're left with isn't worth having. And the other options? Lumi asked. 2. You leave and pretend you never found us. Boring for everyone. Murphy sipped his coffee. Or 3, we establish diplomatic and trade relations that benefit both sides without any of that messy imperial governance business. Krazz studied the human carefully. You speak as if these terms are being offered from a position of strength. Your planetary defenses are non-existent. Your military technology is primitive by our standards. Your political structure is fragmented. And yet here you are, having coffee with me instead of bombarding our cities, Murphy pointed out. Because something about Earth doesn't fit your conquest model, and it's driving you crazy trying to figure out what it is. I know what it is, Lumi said suddenly. All 3 turned to look at the small alien, who had been quietly observing the exchange. It's their imagination. Explain, Krazz commanded. Lumi's enormous eyes blinked rapidly. Humans have imagined every possible way their world might end. Alien invasion, environmental collapse, pandemic, nuclear war. They've created countless detailed scenarios of these events in their entertainment, their literature, their games. So Krazz asked. So they've been rehearsing, Lumi continued, her voice filled with dawning comprehension, mentally, culturally, collectively rehearsing their response to apocalypse for generations. They've imagined 1,000 different ways to defeat superior forces, survive catastrophic events, rebuild from ashes. Murphy's smile widened. Give the little alien a prize. That's absurd, Krazz scoffed. Mental rehearsal is not tactical preparation, isn't it? Murphy challenged, while you were deciding whether to vaporize an island for your demonstration. Ordinary humans worldwide were already sharing detailed countermeasure strategies. Not military personnel, regular citizens. Accountants, teachers, delivery drivers, people who've spent their lives consuming media about exactly this scenario. He pulled out his mobile device and showed them a screen filled with civilian-created defense plans. This guy's a plumber from Idaho. This woman teaches kindergarten in Tokyo. This teenager raises goats in Kenya. None of them have military training, yet they're independently developing viable strategies to resist Terizan occupation. But why, VexX asked, genuinely perplexed. Why devote so much cultural energy to apocalyptic scenarios? Because we've been waiting for you, Murphy said simply, or someone like you. Humanity has always looked to the stars with a mixture of hope and dread. We want to believe we're not alone, but we're also pretty sure that when we finally meet our galactic neighbors, they might not have our best interests at heart. He gestured expansively at the city around them. We didn't build plasma cannons or orbital defense platforms because we knew they'd be useless against any civilization advanced enough for interstellar travel. Instead, we built something much more dangerous, a species-wide mental readiness to resist, adapt, and survive. You believe your imagination is an effective defense against our technology? Krazz asked, incredulity evident in his voice. I believe, Murphy said carefully, that if you check your tactical simulations for conquering Earth, you'll find that even with your superior technology, the projected casualties and resource expenditure would be unprecedented in your imperial history. Krazz was silent, because the human was correct. The preliminary simulations had shown disturbing results. Even conservative estimates suggested a protracted conflict with unacceptable losses. Let me show you something, Murphy continued, pulling up an image on his device. It showed a timeline of human warfare, stretching back thousands of years. See this pattern? Every time a technologically superior force encounters humans, the same thing happens. The superior force wins initial victories, then gets bogged down in an increasingly costly occupation, and eventually either withdraws or adapts to coexistence. Historical patterns on a single planet don't necessarily extend to interspecies conflict, Krazz argued. True, Murphy acknowledged. So let me share something that isn't in your intelligence files. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Earth has been invaded before. Twice. Both times by species more advanced than yours. The Admiral's facial tentacles went completely still, a sign of intense focus in his species. Impossible. We would have detected evidence. Would you? Murphy smiled. The first attempt was 12,000 years ago. Hardly a trace remains except in our most ancient myths about gods from the sky. The second was more recent, just about 700 years back. We were still using swords and horses. They had directed energy weapons and atmospheric craft. What happened to these invaders? Lumi asked softly. The first group underestimated us and was wiped out. The second was smarter. They realized conquest would be too costly and negotiated a withdrawal. Murphy's eyes took on that calculating look again. We've had centuries to prepare for the next attempt. You're claiming that primitive humans defeated a spacefaring civilization. Krazz's disbelief was evident. I'm claiming that humans made victory so costly that it wasn't worth the price. Murphy corrected. And that was before we had nuclear weapons, bioengineered viruses, and global communication networks. He paused, letting the implications sink in. So, about that trade agreement. As the Admiral processed this information, a group of human children ran past their table, laughing and playing some kind of chasing game. One small girl stopped, stared curiously at Krazz, then gave a friendly wave before running after her friends. That's the thing you really don't understand, Murphy said, watching the children. Humans will fight with particular ferocity to protect our young. We're simultaneously the most destructive and most nurturing species you'll ever encounter. We create art and poetry about the same wars where we commit atrocities. We're walking contradictions. A most inefficient evolutionary design, Krazz commented. And yet, here we are. Murphy grinned, ready to talk trade instead of conquest. Before Krazz could respond, his security alert vibrated. Drell's voice came through his communicator. Admiral, we've detected unusual activity in Earth's upper atmosphere. Multiple objects approaching orbital insertion. Krazz fixed Murphy with a suspicious glare. You have no space capabilities beyond your lunar satellite. Murphy's expression turned enigmatic. Did I mention we have friends? Not every species we've encountered wanted to conquer us. Some found us interesting, worth preserving, even. As if on cue, 6 sleek vessels of unfamiliar design decloaked in Earth's orbit. Clearly visible on the tactical display, Krazz pulled up on his device. Don't worry, Murphy assured him. They're just observing. Standard protocol when a new player enters the game. You know how it is. Admiral Krazz of the Terizan Empire, conqueror of 47 worlds, looked from the tactical display to the casually smiling human, and for the first time in his 3-century career, felt the unfamiliar sensation of being completely outmaneuvered. Perhaps, he said carefully, we should discuss those trade options. After all. Murphy's smile widened. I thought you'd never ask. Admiral Krazz sat alone in his private chamber aboard the inevitable Conquest, surrounded by holographic displays. Each screen showed a different Earth entertainment depicting the defeat of alien invaders, humans overcoming technological superiority through unpredictable tactics, exploiting overlooked weaknesses, or simply refusing to surrender despite overwhelming odds. Fascinating, isn't it? Vex commented as he entered with Lumi. They've been rehearsing this scenario for over a century. Krazz gestured at the displays. In this one, they defeat an armada by uploading a computer virus. In another, they exploit a biological weakness to pathogenic microbes. In a third, they drive invaders away by broadcasting painful sound frequencies. He shook his head. None of these tactics would work against actual Terizan technology. The specifics aren't what matters, Lumi explained, her enormous eyes reflecting the shifting images. It's the psychological preparation. They've built a cultural immune system against conquest. Krazz's facial tentacles twisted in contemplation. After 47 successful planetary acquisitions, we face defeat not from superior weapons, but from stories, sir. Drell interrupted via con channel. The diplomatic shuttle is requesting your presence. The Earth representative has arrived with his advisors. The Terizan conference chamber fell silent as Murphy entered, flanked by 2 beings that made even Krazz uncomfortable. Their forms shifted subtly, as if reality itself couldn't quite contain them. My associates, Murphy introduced casually. Representatives from what you might call the Galactic Observation Council. They've been monitoring Earth for, a few thousand years now. Impossible, Krazz declared, though with less conviction than he would have liked. Our stellar surveys detected no evidence of advanced civilizations in this sector. One of the shifting beings made a sound like distant wind chimes. Murphy nodded, as if understanding perfectly. They say that's adorable, he translated. They've been watching your empire expand for centuries. Earth was classified as a protected observation world long before humans invented agriculture. Then why allow us to approach at all? XX asked. Murphy shrugged. Educational purposes, apparently. Both for you and for us. He placed a data device on the conference table. This contains our terms. Nothing complicated. You classify Earth as a sovereign entity. We agree not to share Terizan vulnerabilities with your enemies. Vulnerabilities? Krazz's tentacles went rigid. You're bluffing. Am I? Murphy smiled. Ask yourself why your supposedly secure communications were so easily intercepted, or why your quantum encryption suddenly seemed less. Quantum the second shifting being produced to sound like distant thunder. Murphy nodded again. Right, almost forgot. The Council has a message for you. The Terizan experiment has reached its conclusion phase. Adjustments to your expansion parameters are now required. Krazz stood abruptly. The Terizan Empire does not take orders from. Actually, Murphy interrupted. You might want to check your homeworld communications. I believe they've already been. Advised of the situation, a junior officer hurried in, handing Krazz a secure tablet. The Admiral's coloration paled as he read. So Murphy said, leaning back casually, about those trade agreements. 3 days later, the Terizan fleet departed Earth orbit with unusual haste. The official Imperial records would classify Earth as Resource Category 7. Delta acquisition cost exceeds projected value. Unofficially, it was categorized more simply too much trouble. 6 months after the Terizan departure, Jack Murphy sat in the same Central Park cafe, enjoying his morning coffee. The headlines on nearby screens had already moved on from alien visitation to celebrity scandals and political controversies. Across the street, a movie theater advertised the summer's blockbuster Invasion Earth, featuring impossibly heroic humans defeating technologically superior alien invaders. Murphy smiled as his phone buzzed with a notification, a message from an unregistered number containing only galactic coordinates and a time. At a nearby table, a woman was explaining to her friend how she would survive in case of a zombie apocalypse. 2 teenagers walked past, debating whether nuclear fallout shelters would protect against alien bioweapons. Humans, Murphy thought with affection, eternally preparing for catastrophes that might never come, and in doing so, ensuring their survival against those that would. He finished his coffee, left a generous tip, and walked into the bustling city, one anonymous human among billions, collectively imagining 1,000 different ends to their world and 1,000 ways to survive them. Behind him, unseen and unnoticed, a small monitoring probe from the Galactic Observation Council recorded it all, transmitting data to species throughout the galaxy who found humans endlessly, fascinatingly unpredictable. The game continued.